All right, good evening, everybody. Good to see you guys. Whoa, look at that. You guys see that rat? It's the first rat of the night. Right there. There he goes. Let me actually get away from him. Or her. Oh, there he is again. A lot of rats tonight to start off the live stream. Anyway, good evening, everybody. We are reporting here live. Welcome back to Walks in Wall Street. This is Central Park South. We are actually starting the stream off Central Park South, 59th Street and 6th Avenue. If you look all the way down, you could actually see Times Square. Wait, this isn't 6th. I think this is 7th. Excuse me, yeah, Broadway. Anyway, you get the picture. It's a beautiful night out here in New York. It's going to be a little bit of a shortened live stream tonight. It's only going to be going on for about an hour, this broadcast, but there was a couple notable companies on Wall Street today that reported their corporate earnings. First and foremost, we heard from our good friend Mark Benioff from Salesforce, ticker symbol CRM. Then we heard from CrowdStrike, which is a cybersecurity company, ticker symbol CRWD. Then we also heard from another cybersecurity company that specializes in identity and access management, which is Okta, ticker symbol OKTA. Now, the earnings reports, I would say, from Salesforce and CrowdStrike weren't bad. We're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive tomorrow night. We're essentially going to go through line item by line item, analyzing the reports. However, Salesforce did beat analysts' expectations on the top and the bottom line, and they actually raised their forward guidance for earnings, or EPS. However, the stock still traded down about 5% after hours, mainly because I think the most concerning thing about the report was higher than expected capital expenditures. Now, if you remember correctly, one of the main reasons, right, we could speculate why Salesforce has really been a laggard in 2022. It's actually recovered and performed pretty well in 2023, is because Wall Street was really concerned with the, I would say, corporate bloat, right? And that's been going on with a lot of companies. But with Salesforce specifically, just this quarter, capital expenditures were up 36% to $243 million. And they're also in a little bit of a battle with activist investor Elliott Management, which wanted to come in there and sort of shake things up. We'll get some updates on that a little bit later in the stream. But again, they did beat earnings on both the top and the bottom line. Many analysts on Wall Street were expecting earnings per share to come in at $1.61. They reported at $1.69. If you look at the top line revenue growth, Salesforce reported $8.25 billion for the quarter. Many analysts on Wall Street were expecting $8.18 billion. So they did beat on both the top and the bottom line. They did guide higher. I think for fiscal year 2024, they raised earnings per share, or EPS estimates, to $7.41 to about $7.52. So there was actually a little bit of a beat there. But, you know, we're seeing this pretty poor and lackluster reaction to earnings, I should say. And we'll talk about perhaps some reasons why that is a little bit later in the stream. But first, let me say hello to our good friends in the chat, and then we'll get started. We're going to be going to the Upper East Side tonight. I see, hey, Razzle Dazzle 786, long time no see. Welcome back to New York. We're happy to have you here. I see Dr. Longiz, good to see you. Jafet Perez, Gary Carpenter, CA2SD is here. Says hello, Tom and friends. Richard Vogel, Sally is here. Austin City Limits, Julia M, welcome, welcome. GG NYC, always a pleasure. Chan is here. Jafet Perez is CrowdStrike, also tanking after hours. Yeah, so the reaction to earnings has been very poor. Has been very, very poor. All three of those companies trading markedly lower after hours. You're 100% right. Hemp Lord is here, says President. Bree Grams, welcome. Now, did you guys see the news on Twitter? Well, I actually shouldn't characterize it as news, right? It was mainly a more notable, I should say, tweet by our good friend Bill Ackman. Now, I think it was Mike, maybe Mike C or Mike, I forget, but we were talking about this on Twitter, and Bill Ackman actually came out and wrote about 2 or 3 paragraphs endorsing CEO Jamie Dimon to run for president, to run for public office. And Bill Ackman, obviously the hedge fund manager, extremely successful at Pershing Square. Essentially what he was saying is that he has some concerns with current President Joe Biden. To use his words, not mine, says that there's some cognitive decline going on there. And he thinks that Jamie Dimon, being the moderate that he is and the successful businessman that he is, could make a pretty good presidential candidate. Now, I'm a little bit mixed on this. Usually we don't talk politics on the live stream, but I think it's appropriate in this circumstance because Jamie Dimon is the leader, is the CEO of Wall Street Megabank, the largest investment bank, megabank, JP Morgan Chase on Wall Street. So maybe we'll talk about that tonight. Which, I mean, if you think about the particular candidates that are in the race, I don't know, Jamie Dimon doesn't seem like the worst person to get in the mix there. As I think about all the other candidates, I think about divisiveness, I should say. And Jamie Dimon is sort of just a no-nonsense business guy. However, he has been involved in some, I should say, probes with the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. So I think that needs to sort of resolve itself if this was actually going to be the case. However, I really don't think he's going to run. I think this was just Bill Ackman putting out his thoughts. But anybody have any thoughts on that? Any feedback? Good idea, bad idea? What do you guys think? We're standing outside of the JW Marriott Essex House right here on Central Park South. Todd Scott is here. Thank you so much, Todd, for your very kind $3 donation. Says hello from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Says hello, Pammy. What's up? Good to see you guys. Welcome to all of our Pennsylvania viewers. This is the Deutsche Bank Towers right here. I see Troy Atman says, hasn't he already said no, though? Maybe he could change his mind. You know, I don't actually know about that, Troy. I haven't really been following it. I only saw the tweet that Bill Ackman put out. I don't know if Jamie Dimon has said anything as it relates to running for office. I don't know. I haven't seen that. 488 piece is bad idea. Yeah, I don't even think he may be able to because, you know, he is CEO. What is he just going to ditch his CEO position to run for president? Who knows? Hey, Brian, what's up? Says hello, Tom, and everybody. What are you discussing tonight? Well, it's going to be a shortened live stream. Obviously, big tech earnings were today. Salesforce, CrowdStrike, Okta reported. All of them not terrible earnings reports, actually. Earnings actually came in okay. However, the reaction to earnings is rather poor. And if you look at cybersecurity, we're going to talk about cybersecurity a lot because, as you know, I think that's going to be one of those trends or themes in the market, cybersecurity specifically, that has really strong tailwinds. Obviously, the leader in that market by far, by a long shot, is Palo Alto Networks. They actually reported last week. Stock is trading near all-time record highs. However, we did have a big reversal and a big rejection as the stock was trying to break out into new all-time record highs. And if we think about, the CAN SLIM investment methodology coined by William J. O'Neill, one of the most important characteristics is the M in CAN SLIM. And M stands for market direction. And the overall general market has been a little bit lackluster, right? I mean, if you look at the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, over the past 2 years, stocks have been going sideways. And even though we've had this rally on Wall Street, which we've had in the major indices, what's been propelling the indices higher is a handful of stocks. If you look under the hood of the market, it's actually a very, very thin market with very little participation. Real quick, you guys see all these runners here with the luminescent t-shirts? Speaking of JP Morgan, there was a big event going on today in Central Park, and I think it's going to go on for the next 2 days, by the way, as well. It's the JP Morgan Corporate Challenge, it's called. So you're going to see a lot of bankers, people in the financial community. I believe they come to Central Park and run a 5K. I think that's the race. I believe it is a 5K. And I believe they donate the proceeds of that race to the Central Park Conservation Fund to keep Central Park clean and running. So I think it's a cool thing. I was checking it out earlier today in Central Park when they were setting it up. Maybe we'll have a little bit of time to go into Central Park so you guys can see all the different stands. You'll see, Team Citadel Securities, you'll see Team Fidelity, Team Neuberger Berman, Team JP Morgan Chase, Team Morgan Stanley, HSBC, and they all run a race to raise money for the Central Park conservation. Those people that just passed us had the .72 shirts on, which is a very, very successful and powerful hedge fund. The owner, or I should say the CEO of .72, is the owner of the Mets, the New York Mets. This is the Park Lane Hotel. Really beautiful here. Hey, Travel Size, what's up? It's good evening, Tom and everybody. Good to see you. Caroline's is RFK Jr. is for free speech, medical freedom, Second Amendment, Constitution, eliminating corruption, etc., etc. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting candidates that have entered the race, right? Where I would say I agree with the likes of Bill Ackman and even Elon Musk is I agree with this. I think we just need a little bit of a reset. I just think we need new blood and new candidates. I don't know if, I don't know if the country can handle another 4 years of either Biden or, Trump, assuming if he wins or he gets the nomination. I think we just need a new normal person that's just, you're not going to have to, look at the headline of the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times and like cringe, like, oh God, what did this guy say? Or, oh my gosh, did he stumble over his words? Or I think we just need this normal guy or girl, normal guy or girl that doesn't have so much baggage, that's not just like you wake up and it's so laborious reading the headlines. I don't know. So maybe Jamie Dimon fits that bill. However, there has been some investigations between the relationship, I should say the financial banking relationship between JP Morgan Chase and Jeffrey Epstein during that time. And I think that case is still playing itself out. So hopefully there's no major involvement there. This is the Plaza Hotel and Residences on the north-facing side of the Plaza Hotel. This is actually the residential side. So as we continue to walk up by the plaza, you're actually able to rent an apartment unit or purchase in the Plaza Hotel, and you get access to all of the luxury amenities of the hotel, which would be pretty cool to sort of say, hey, I live in the Plaza Hotel. I think that's very unique. Now, a lot of these hotels are doing this in Manhattan, right? There's a lot of different programs, and they're almost very similar to timeshares. And I'm not the biggest fan of timeshares, and we could, go into exactly why maybe on a later stream. But there's a lot of, upscale luxury hotels in the city that are offering a portion of the hotel up for purchase, right? The Trump International Hotel is one of them that does that, which is actually on the other end of the street. The address is 1 Central Park West. We can't really see it from here, but you're actually able to purchase an individual unit in the Trump International Hotel at 1 Central Park West. You're able to use it when you want. You get full access to the whole hotel, but when you're not using it, it rents out in the hotel pool to guests. Now, very seldom, I'll say this, very, very seldom, because I was looking into it one time, very seldom is the ROI really worth it. Very rarely do the properties cash flow. It's more along the lines to have like a pied-à-terre and to have the rental income cover your HOA fees, so to speak. Very, very rarely does the numbers actually work to where the property cash flows. But I will say this, another building that is doing a similar thing is the Waldorf Astoria, which is right here in New York. The very famous Waldorf Astoria has actually been completely gut renovated. Now, I'm not sure if we're gonna have enough time to pass by the Waldorf Astoria tonight on the live stream, but we may do that tomorrow night. I think units in the Waldorf Astoria range from a studio apartment starting at $1.5 million all the way up to the penthouse at the Waldorf Astoria, which is going for just under $20 million. Now, it's the same concept, right? You have all of the amenities and all of the luxury of living in a 5-star hotel, full service, maid service, housekeeping, room service. You could use all the amenities like the gym and the like, and when you're not there, you could rent it out. Hey, Laura M is here. Says, hey Tom, watching from North Carolina. Good to see you, thank you so much. Bill Mathis says, hello everybody. Welcome, welcome. I see Hawaii is here. Mike 34 says, why does the scaffolding come down? Or when does the scaffolding come down? You know, I don't know. I'm really not too sure, but that's a major problem here in Manhattan. I guess depending on who you ask, right? It seems like half the buildings here have scaffolding all over the place, that's a whole other conversation as to why. But oftentimes, this is a good example right here. Right across the street from us is actually the Sherry Netherland, which is another very famous hotel and apartment where you could also purchase apartments in here. Now, the very famous Jesse Livermore, the boy plunger, one of the greatest traders on Wall Street back in the day, would frequent this building all the time. Unfortunately, he passed away right in this building. But this has scaffolding all over it as well. And a lot of times landlords will get issued from the building department here in New York City where you may have some structural issue where some of the facade may be falling off and it could cause danger to pedestrians down below. So instead of spending all of the money to repair it, which could be very, very costly in Manhattan, especially with raw materials and labor costs going through the roof in the city, some landlords just choose to leave the scaffolding up so they don't have to pay to fix it. And there's been many, many stories, especially on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, where scaffolding has been up for almost over a decade in some select buildings, blocking views, causing, havoc to the pedestrians down below. And so this is sort of a little bit of a loophole to allow developers some time so they don't have to invest the money fixing the facades of the building. Richard Vogel says scaffolding really distracts from the looks in New York City. Yeah, it's kind of I would agree. I mean, look at this. For example, the Plaza Hotel. I mean, people come here from all over the world to get a glimpse of the Plaza. Now, let me tell you something. The scaffolding around the Plaza Hotel is, I would call like Class A scaffolding, right? There's no such thing as that, but you could tell it looks a little bit more luxurious as opposed to, the eyesore of the scaffolding that's here, right? You have all these metal poles jagging all over the place. Here it looks a little bit more neat and a little bit more clean. Would you guys agree? I think it looks a little bit better. And you'll notice that the scaffolding outside of the brand new Aman Hotel right on 57th Street and 5th Avenue is the same way, right? People are not going to spend $2,500 a night on a hotel room if the scaffolding covering the building is looking like that, right? They may compromise and do that if the scaffolding looks a little bit better, like the one you see across the street. Hey, Jay Bear, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. KM Ramsey says definitely an eyesore. I would agree. Vivian Francesca says hello, everybody. Good to see you. FredX. Chris L says I'm curious. Let me scroll back to Chris's comment. Oh yeah, Chris is, I'm curious how much these scaffolding contractors make. Well, I can actually provide a little bit of insight to that. One of my customers actually used to be a big scaffolding company based in the Bronx. And from their operations, you would never know that they're making, tons of money hand over fist. But I can assure you that it is a very, very, very profitable business, and they are raking in the cash. Let's just put it, I'll leave it at that. Billy Johnson is here, what's up? Michael Joseph says weather is good today in New York City. It really is. Michael Joseph, we were just talking about our conversation on Twitter today. I believe it was you. Yeah, it was you. About Bill Ackman coming out and essentially endorsing Jamie Dimon to run for president, or at least giving him a little bit of a nudge to run, right? Now, I doubt it'll ever happen, but I'm a little bit torn on the idea. I said we'd talk about it tonight, so I'm curious your thoughts. Now, here's where I'm optimistic about, on the very, very off chance Jamie Dimon actually does run for president. He is actually competent and proved his abilities as a businessman, running one of the most powerful Wall Street mega banks the world has ever seen, right? Generating billions of dollars in profits for shareholders, returning extreme amounts of value for shareholders, and quite frankly, he is beloved by many of the employees at JP Morgan Chase. Again, the only sort of, I don't even really want to say black mark on it. There is that open-ended question whether there was some involvement with banking Jeffrey Epstein, but I think that is going through court proceedings, and we'll see if really how deep that actually went. I think right now it's all allegations. I don't know, but we'll see. Who Dat Dave says he is too much of an establishment guy. Yeah, I think there's a big trend about people not wanting to vote for, I guess you could say, number one, career politicians, and number two, people a part of the quote-unquote establishment. However, Jamie Dimon is a self-made person in the business environment, and I think it wouldn't hurt to have somebody who's very financially literate in charge of the country, especially with what's going on right now with the debt ceiling and the debt limits and out of control spending, which I believe they're voting on that today. Is that correct? I think the vote may be, or was today or tomorrow. Now, President Joe Biden and Speaker McCarthy came to an agreement. It's 99.99% sure it's going to pass, but I think the vote was today. Hey, Dusty Cole, what's up? Who Dat Dave says I'm all for him running, just stating the macro opinion. Yeah, I don't know. And you guys know, very seldom do we get political, but since Jamie Dimon was thrown into the mix, I just thought we'd talk about it a little bit. Justin S., that is correct. House today, Senate tomorrow. So here's another example. This is the Amman Hotel, the brand new Amman Hotel, 57th Street and 5th Avenue. You can kind of still see some of the scaffolding up. You guys see it? Over on this side, we'll give you a little bit better perspective. Remy says, how is the safety of this area compared to, say, like 1993? Well, I can't speak from experience of 1993 because that was before I was born. However, this is probably the safest neighborhood of all in New York City that you're going to get. Right now, sir, we are on Billionaires Row. Okay, 57th Street is home to 220 Central Park South, Central Park Tower, 157. 432 Park Avenue, which is right behind this building. We just can't see it right now. This is the highest rent district in all of New York right here. Yesterday on the stream, we were just talking about a notable sale that just happened right here on Billionaires Row in 220 Central Park South, which is actually hidden by the skinniest residential building in the world. This is it right here, the Steinway Tower. The address is 111 West 57th Street. This is officially the skinniest residential tower in the world, but about 2 blocks north and 2 blocks west of the Steinway building sits 220 Central Park South, where a condominium unit, an apartment, just went under contract this past weekend for a whopping $75 million. Okay, so if you ask about the safety of this area, I mean, this is about as safe as you're gonna get. Also at 59th Street, Columbus Circle, you have a police precinct directly in the train station. So a lot of the stuff you see on the news, there is some truth behind that, right? The city is seeing an uptick in crime, which is, to be transparent, that's true. But I think the city is moving in the right direction. And I think that's being shown by a lot of the people starting to move back to the city, particularly on the Upper West Side, Tribeca and the like. This is the Crown Building, or the Amman Hotel. You can see on the sign it says Amman, New York. And more scaffolding. Speaking of scaffolding, here we have it. Here's another good shot of the Steinway building. Hey, Zozo Bob's, his debt ceiling bill just passed the House. So crisis averted, am I right? Kind of joking there. Now, if anybody could pull up futures right now, because I'm assuming Zozo Bob, this just happened, I would be very interested to see the reaction in the equity market right now. So if you look at S&P 500 futures, right? It would be the E-mini futures, so ticker symbol ES. Also take a look at the NASDAQ 100 futures, right, which is exclusive or excluding the financials, so ticker symbol NQ. Let's see if this is sort of a buy the rumor, sell the fact event, where we may get a little bit of a sell-off. Equity markets sold off further today. Reaction to earnings after hours was very poor from companies like Salesforce, CrowdStrike, and Okta, all while earnings came in okay. Earnings came in okay. Now, the biggest thing we sort of already covered with Salesforce is that capital expenditures were still up significantly, right? And that's been a big problem for a lot of tech companies, not just Salesforce. I think the biggest culprit of that has actually been Meta, right? And I think that's why the stock price of Meta has been absolutely crushed, but it's recovered so well because Mark Zuckerberg made it a point to make 2023 all about cost cutting, right? Reducing that corporate bloat, trimming that fat, and trying to make the organization lean and mean again. So Salesforce reporting earnings, EPS coming in at $1.69. That actually beat analysts' expectations of $1.61. Revenue also beat, coming in at $8.25 billion. Analysts on Wall Street were expecting $8.18 billion. Look at all this garbage, geez. I'm definitely bullish waste management after this huge garbage pile up here. Double Eagle says, Tom, the debt ceiling increase was already baked into the cake. Market never really thought it wouldn't happen. Well, actually, I mean, if you look at the bond market was actually signaling, especially at the short end of the curve, that there was a big possibility for default. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago, and I was actually perplexed about that. I was actually really perplexed about that. But I think you make a good point, Double Eagle, because, again, you started to see the short end of the curve, you started to see yields blow out a little bit. I think at one point, about a week and a half ago, the 1-year US Treasury had a 6 handle. So you had 6% yield on the 1-year US Treasury, which was sort of signaling that there's probably a high probability for default. And we actually took an impromptu poll in the chat. And there was a lot of people, a lot of viewers actually were convinced, right, or thought there was a high probability where we would not get a deal done and that the US could potentially fault on its debt obligations. I don't know. I just think, and I've said this many times, it's the same thing every couple years, right? It's the same dog and pony show every couple years, right? Where it comes down to the literal wire. So you have the Treasury Secretary, whoever it is at the time, in this case, Janet Yellen, comes out on Bloomberg, CNBC, Fox Business, CNN, and rants and raves about how, we could run out of money by June 1st, and, people aren't going to get their Social Security checks, and, Treasury investors aren't going to get paid, and, that really scares the hell out of some people that aren't really, in tune with the market. But, again, it's in the United States, it's always the same thing, right? There's never going to be a time, in my opinion, where we're going to come to an agreement to reduce spending. It's just not going to happen. I think we've gone past the point of no return here. I think you're always going to have government spending continue to sort of be on this parabolic rise almost in perpetuity. Yeah, Michael Joseph says the 6-month T-bill is at 5.5%, still good. Yeah, it's still attractive, right? I guess the good news is that savers are finally getting rewarded again, right? Double Eagle says political suicide for both sides just simply wouldn't work. Yeah, that's true. I think it's also, to your point, you just sort of got to follow the money, right? All of these politicians have a vested interest in getting a deal done. Because if there is a default, not only would it be political suicide, but you would probably see the S&P at about 1,800 in a very short amount of time if we actually did default on our debt. But I don't think that's going to happen, which is good. Hey, Evan Weeks, what's up? Good to see you. Eeks is just keep printing money and keep spending, it never ends. That's what it seems like. Right, that's what it seems like, unfortunately. Lou T. Williams says, Tom, did you get a chance to open the Apple high yield savings account? I didn't, which is unfortunate, but I am going to do that. That is on my action items list. I really want to try out the user experience of Apple sort of trying to dive into the fintech world. I think they're going to be a huge disruptor, and I'm actually pretty bullish on it. Right? If you think about the total addressable market of that, it's just kind of unbelievable, right? Think about all of the people in the United States and globally that have an iPhone in their hand, right? That is your opportunity. If you can convert, even a third of all the people who hold an iPhone in their hand to bank with Apple, think about the incremental revenue and earnings that's going to put in Tim Cook's pocket. It's going to be a lot. D, yes, that is true. Thank you guys for that. I believe yesterday on the live stream, we hit 30,000 people, which is just unbelievable. So I want to thank all of you for coming out each night, having good conversations about the financial markets, walking around New York City and Miami with me. I never would have thought we would have 30,000 people here. So I appreciate all of you very, very much. And here's to 30,000 more. All right, let's see what Evan Weeks has to say. Says, I got my wife to switch. Hold on, let me see. You got your wife a Switch and TV for her office, and both Pokemon Violet and Animal Crossing so we could play together in the evenings. So I got that going for me. Love that. Love that. You know, I don't think I told you guys this, but I don't have a TV, but I managed to actually buy one. And then in 2 weeks it broke. And I just don't have enough time to go back and exchange it or return it, so it's just sitting in my house, broken. But I think that's what I get if you try to cheap out and buy like one of those Vizio TVs. Are you guys familiar with that brand? It's the cheap brands you always see at Walmart, right? The Vizio sort of TVs. You know it's only going to last for 2 weeks. So that's on me. I take full responsibility for that. Hey, Robert, what's up? Good to see you. Ryan Beck. Good to see you, sir. Hopefully you're well. Now, we just had a mini conversation about rates, right? Because 2 weeks ago, leading up to, well, I should say during the scare of the possibility that the U.S. defaults on its debt obligations, you started to see the short end of the yield curve blow out a little bit, right? You had the 1 month treasury getting up to 6%, which is wild. Now it's come down to about 5.5%. And speaking of that, you had a really good article in Barron's this weekend talking about how investors, particularly retail investors and individual investors, have some of the lowest levels of exposure to equities they've ever had. And they're choosing fixed income. They're choosing to invest their money in the bond market because finally, after a decade, you could actually make some money and make, I should say, a real rate of return, right? Because you have a nominal rate of return and then you have a real rate of return. So real rate of return is that factoring in inflation. So if inflation is going to run at 3.5% and you can buy a 1 year treasury that's yielding you 5%, well, you're actually beating inflation and taking zero risk, right? And when I say zero risk, obviously that is relative because yes, it's possible for the US to default, but it's never happened. So I want to turn it back to you guys and ask you, you don't have to disclose your financial positions or your information, but is that something you're thinking about right now? Are you thinking about, wow, I could just go on to Treasury Direct and maybe buy some short-term T-bills and get an attractive rate of return on my money, and now I don't have to invest money in the stock market and worry about the volatility, worry about new proxy wars going on in Eastern Europe, worrying about a new trade war with China, or worrying about a new COVID virus or XYZ that's going to crash the market. I think a lot of retail investors are starting to think like that and are opting for fixed income yet again. Real quick, while I'm looking at some of the answers in the chat, this is the Peninsula Hotel. This is a beautiful hotel at 700 Fifth Avenue. Look at the architectural detail on this building. It's one of my favorite buildings in the entire city. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you look at the second floor, you could actually see the restaurant, which is within the Peninsula Hotel. If we continue to walk to Fifth Avenue, or I should say towards Fifth Avenue, you'll see the St. Regis. I'll try to get you guys a better view of the lobby, but it is one of the most luxurious hotels here in Manhattan. Michael Joseph says, Tom, I've been laddering in both bonds since May of 2022 and municipal bonds with nice yield in red states with money. Very interesting. Vivian says, yes, Tom, I agree with the treasuries. Who Dat Dave says the 7-day T-bill was over 5% a week ago. Ryan Beck says, yes, Tom, definitely. A portion dedicated to fixed. Too hard to pass up. Yeah, and money market accounts too, right? I mean, let's say if you have a bunch of, let's say if you have money in a brokerage account, right, and you're actively managing it. Chances are, if you're actively managing your portfolio now, you probably have a relatively high cash balance. So if you just purchase money markets, the average money market account in your brokerage is probably over 4.5%, which is a very, very attractive rate of return as well. This is the St. Regis, right here on Fifth Avenue. Yeah, Austin city limits, as I remember in 2008, before the financial crisis, we only had about $10 trillion in debt. Now we are almost at 32 trillion, almost unbelievable. Yeah, it is crazy, and this sort of brings up the question, how much longer can this go on, right? Now, if you think about a person like Peter Schiff, who is the CEO and founder of Euro Pacific Capital and Euro Pacific Bank before regulators forced the bank to close, you know, he has been almost what you call a perma-bear on Wall Street. Now, although he is correct, I think he's just been way too early, and people have been, and including myself at some points. We'll wait till the truck goes by. Oh, I think he's going to park here. I may have to go around the street to show you guys the St. Regis. But I think a lot of people have underestimated how long the Federal Reserve can sort of keep all the balls in the air, right, as it relates to kicking the can down the road. And you're starting to see the financial system break a little bit with high rates, right? If the Federal Reserve raises rates, they've done in the past 18 months over 500 basis points, something is bound to break. And you're seeing that in a lot of the banks, and specifically regional banks that have a lot of exposure to commercial real estate. Joe Driver says, Tom, I'm sticking with precious metals. No country in the world cannot run without them. You know, Joe Driver, it's a good point, and I would like to say this as well. It's a good point. If you look at the net exposure of precious metals, particularly gold and silver, that central banks, oh, this is the Polo Bar. I never knew where this was. And I've lived here all my life, pretty much, and I guess you learn something new every day. This is a very, I would say, upscale, famous place. I think if you want to eat here, you have to make a reservation like 3 months in advance. I never knew it was here. Well, apparently the Polo Bar is right across the street from the St. Regis Hotel. I never knew that. But if you look at central banks, not only the Federal Reserve, but central banks around the world, they've been increasing their purchases of gold, right? They've been acquiring and purchasing gold at the fastest pace ever. So I think it's appropriate to sort of piggyback maybe off of what the central banks are doing. Look at how gorgeous it is inside the St. Regis Hotel. I don't think I ever had the opportunity to show you guys this. Look at those crown moldings, and look at the chandelier that's hanging in the lobby of the St. Regis. The fireplace is gorgeous too. You have all of these really rich, sort of red oak wood crown moldings. That's really beautiful. I've never stayed here. Has anybody in the chat ever stayed at either the St. Regis Hotel or the Peninsula in New York? And if you have, let us know what your experience was. Yeah, Julia M says 10. Yeah, it is 10 out of 10 for sure. Double Eagle says it's all relative. Higher interest rates are great, but it's offset by higher cost via inflation. Purchasing power just continues to go down. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's one of the things that the Federal Reserve is trying to solve, right? Is to kill inflation. I think that's why interest rates have gone up so much. Now, here's been the argument, and this is actually, you know, speaking of Jamie Dimon, it's kind of funny. Actually, hold that thought. I want to take you guys to this park. Just want to make sure I don't get knocked off by a car while I cross the street. This is brand new public space. Black Fox Coffee is actually one of the best coffee shops in Manhattan. I used to frequent, not this exact location, this is brand new, but they used to have a location, I think they may still do, right behind 60 Wall Street, which was the old Deutsche Bank, which is the German bulge bracket investment bank, which is now at Columbus Circle. But I sort of forgot what I was saying. But So the Federal Reserve is actively raising rates to try to kill off inflation. However, there's been many, I'm just going to stick with the example that we gave with Jamie Dimon, because Bill Ackman sort of, made that tweet today saying that, essentially endorsing Jamie Dimon to run for office. But I think he makes a good point, and many other Wall Street CEOs make a good point about potentially the Fed has raised rates too high too fast, because it does take some time for the higher rate environment to trickle through the economy, right? So they may have overdone it. Now, I kind of disagree. I agree with the point that it takes time for higher interest rates to really have an impact, right? It's going to take a couple quarters. If you look at a lot of the leading economic indicators, particularly with existing home sales, right, because real estate market is very dependent on interest rates, we have now had 12 months in a row, so a full year of existing home sales declining, right, which makes sense. Now, we're just starting to see housing prices come down a little bit, but we've had 2 consecutive months. We just got the Case-Shiller home price index out yesterday. It's been 2 consecutive months now where home prices actually went up. However, if you look at some of the localized markets that we talked about yesterday, the further west you go, the weaker the housing market is. You see Seattle down double digits, 12.1% year over year. You see San Francisco, oh, look at that. It's the NYPD mounted unit. Usually you don't see them over here. Usually you see them in Central Park or in Times Square. Kind of funny to see it at Madison Avenue. We'll follow him. We'll see where he's going. But anyway, yeah, I think it takes time for the results to work through the economy. However, if we were really serious about crushing inflation, it all has to do with money supply, right? So it's not necessarily just raising interest rates. That's one particular tool. If you understand the basics of supply and demand, the reason why you have inflation is due to the increase in money supply, right? If you flood the market, with tons and tons of money and just print and print and print, that's going to devalue the purchasing power of your existing currency. So if you really want to fix and do something about the inflation, you got to shrink the money supply. And that would really do some damage in terms of asset prices. Hey, Mighty Moles, says Tom, the St. Regis is $1,400 to $2,000 a night. Wow. That's wild. It's probably the same thing at the Peninsula, the Park Hyatt, and the Mandarin Oriental. The Mandarin Oriental is another 5-star luxury hotel here in Manhattan. And I have a friend who works at the Park Hyatt, New York, and she tells me they're as busy as they've ever been. The only time when they were slow is actually over the Memorial Day weekend, because usually over Memorial Day, you have a lot of people actually traveling out of the city, going to the Hamptons, going to Connecticut, going to upstate New York. So she told me this: if you're ever looking to stay at a really nice luxury hotel in Manhattan, particularly a 5-star hotel, you're going to get the best rates on Memorial Day weekend. So instead of paying the $1,200, the $1,400 a night, maybe you can get something for like $875 or $800. This is 432 Park Avenue, one of the main buildings here on New York City's Billionaires Row. As we walk over to Park Avenue, we're actually going to make a left, and I'm going to take you guys uptown further into the Upper East Side, because I want to show you the difference between some of the, I would say, the retail vacancy that you've seen in Midtown as opposed to the Upper East Side. Now, Soho is actually having a very, very strong demand. They're actually having some of the lowest vacancy rates for retail space in the city's history. However, other parts of the city is a very different story. As we walk to the Upper East Side, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous neighborhood, don't get me wrong, but the vacancy is very high for the retail space. And I want to show you guys that because we spent a lot of time in Lower Manhattan last week. We were on the Upper West Side yesterday, and today I think it would be appropriate if I showed you the Upper East Side. Hey, hang with Mark Maham. What's up? Says, hey Tom, love the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. Now, I haven't stayed there, but I was in the lobby of the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Miami, which is actually located at Brickell Key, if anybody's familiar with that. All right, let me catch up on some of the comments. I see Hemp Lord is here. Airplane POV says, Tom, would you recommend moving to Brooklyn, New York if you're young and want a better place than in Manhattan? I would recommend Brooklyn, but that's a very general question because Brooklyn is a massive borough, okay? There's parts of Brooklyn, New York that you probably don't want to live in, right? But there's other parts of Brooklyn that could be more expensive than Manhattan. And one of the trends we've actually been seeing in the New York City real estate market in terms of residential real estate is during the pandemic, it's caused net migration into Brooklyn, particularly places like Dumbo, Williamsburg, Red Hook, Brooklyn. So prices in terms of rents have really gone skyward in those particular neighborhoods of Brooklyn. So if you could afford it, those would be the neighborhoods I'd recommend. You mentioned you were young, so I'm actually going to throw in a bonus neighborhood for you. I would check out some apartments in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Now, Greenpoint, Brooklyn is, in my opinion, one of the most exciting up-and-coming neighborhoods in Brooklyn. I actually used to live there. I loved my time there. I absolutely loved it. I lived right on DuPont Street, if you guys are familiar with that. Rents are not too bad. Now, depending on how young you are, it is very fashionable and very trendy in some specific neighborhoods of Brooklyn to live with roommates, right? If you ever walk past one of the big brownstone buildings, usually it's usually like a 4-bedroom apartment and they put 4 people in there. So usually you could probably get, depending on the neighborhood, you can rent a room anywhere from $875 a month all the way up to $1,500 a month if you want something nice. So I would recommend it, but I would recommend Greenpoint, Brooklyn. I think you're going to really like it there. Yeah, Michael Joseph says Queens is right next to Greenpoint too. Steve Miller, what's up? Quick 12 says those are heavily gentrified and expensive. They are. Joy YJ says, what's your favorite hotel that you've ever stayed at in New York? It's between 2 of them, because I haven't stayed at many ultra luxury hotels in New York because I live here, so I never really stay at hotels. But I've stayed at the Trump International Hotel and Tower one time. That was an unreal hotel. And I've stayed at the Park Hyatt, and the Park Hyatt is really, really nice. That's actually inside the 157 building, which is the Gary Barnett Extel development. But I haven't really stayed at any other luxury hotels. Only if it's on like a work thing, or if it's like somebody's getting engaged and we're having the party there, that's when I'll stay. But I live here, so I don't really stay in hotels. But those are probably the 2 coolest ones I've stayed at so far. All right, guys, this is 425 Park Avenue. This is a very, very important building to pay attention to because it showcases Class A office space, the cream of the crop office towers in Manhattan. Now, this is home to Citadel and Citadel Securities. You can see them both right here at the front desk. I think they have 500 employees here now. Citadel CEO and founder Ken Griffin wants to take that to over 2,000 by next year. So they are growing on Park Avenue. However, in a couple years, to copy Jamie Dimon, if you guys look all the way down Park Avenue right here, you see all the cranes at the top of that building? That's 270 Park Avenue, which is going to be the new home to JP Morgan Chase. And a couple blocks across the street from 270 Park is going to be the brand new Citadel Securities mega office tower. So they're actually building 2 towers. Ken Griffin is. One is going to be in the Brickell district of Miami, Florida. The next one's going to be right here on Park Avenue. So continuously accelerating the trend towards Class A office space. I think this bus may have made too wide of a turn, or maybe turned down the wrong way. I don't know what was going on there. I think he went down a one-way street, which is really uncharacteristic for MTA drivers. You would think they would know the city by the back of their hand. All right, one more shot of 432 Park, and then I'm gonna start picking up the pace here to get you guys to the Upper East Side. Bronson says it looks really clean there compared to other parts of New York. Bronson, I agree. Usually Park Avenue, they keep it, spiffy because this is essentially Wall Street. Now, many people that are unfamiliar with New York are like, well, Tom, what are you talking about? Wall Street's in Lower Manhattan. I get that. The physical street is in Lower Manhattan, but over the years, a lot of the Wall Street mega banks, the hedge funds, the family offices, the private equity firms, the venture capital firms, all migrated to Park Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. So you actually have a higher concentration of financial firms here and big real estate companies on Park Avenue in Midtown Manhattan as opposed to the physical street of Wall Street. Carlos is a meltdown in the bond market will destroy the stock market. The crash is going to start and end in the bond market. That is true. If the bond market ever melts down, that's, we always say this on the stream. We say if you want to know where the stock market is going to go, you should be looking at the bond market. Because the stock market in and of itself is a derivative of the debt market, right? I mean, it only makes sense. And that essentially means the stock market derives its value from the bond market. Because very simply, that was a very good comment, by the way. I like that comment. That's the comment of the night so far. Pay attention to the gorgeous architecture as we make our way further into the Upper East Side. It's going to transition from all these ultra luxurious office towers to the old rustic and very beautiful architecture of the old Manhattan. I think you guys will love that transition, so just keep an eye on that. But the bond market, very simply, is just the price of money, right? It's essentially the cost of money. And there was actually a good article in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend, and it sort of showcased why a lot of small businesses are having a harder time navigating this market environment as opposed to, let's say a big Fortune 500 company like Apple, like Microsoft, like Alphabet, because you got to understand something. If a small business wants to raise money, right, or wants access to capital, what do they generally have to do? Well, they have to go to a banking institution and get a line of credit or get a loan. And if you think about where interest rates have gone over the past 18 months, they've gone from near zero to the Fed funds rate is about 5% to 5.25%. Now, that's not where small businesses are going to get money, right? Banks are going to lend to small businesses. If you want a line of credit, it's probably going to be double digits, depending on credit quality of the small business. However, if you look at Fortune 500 companies or big publicly traded companies, what is one way that they access capital or they raise money? Right, it's through the issuance of bonds. And Apple, right, Tim Cook's company, could issue debt at significantly lower rates than pretty much anybody on the planet. And they did. If you look at bond issuance, I think Meta, Apple, I want to say Microsoft, it may have been, I don't know if it was Microsoft, but they just recently had a bond offering, and I believe the yields on those bonds were under 5%. So generally speaking, publicly traded companies or big, well-capitalized companies are having an easier time getting access to capital, and they're really using a lot of that capital to actually buy back their own stock. And what happens when you issue bonds and use the money that you've collected from issuing those bonds to buy back your own stock, you're thus decreasing the amount of shares outstanding in the marketplace. And when you decrease the shares outstanding in the marketplace, that increases your EPS. Does that make sense? So when you increase your EPS or earnings per share, that is a very valuable metric that investors look for, right? We always talk about that pretty much every night on the stream. You want to look for companies that are growing their EPS per quarter and per annum, 25% plus. So that's been another trend, right? And a lot of politicians have been very critical of that in terms of stock buybacks. You've had probably the politician that's been most critical of share repurchase programs is probably Elizabeth Warren. And Elizabeth Warren is the one who led the charge of the brand new excise tax that just went into effect in January of 2023. So any new share repurchase programs as of January 1 of this year is subject to a 1% excise tax. And there was many people on Wall Street that were flipping out about this. They were ranting and raving and saying, if corporations are going to have to pay a 1% excise tax, well, then this is going to limit the amount of share repurchase programs that are going to be happening. Well, it really hasn't materialized like that. If anything, corporations are on track to repurchase more shares than they did in 2022. So the 1% tax really hasn't dampened demand for share repurchases, let's just say that. Hey D, good to see you. All right guys, one more shot of 432 Park Avenue. This is from East 60th Street in Park, but do you guys see this building right here? Do you guys see this building directly to the right of 432? Now this is actually the, I'm blanking on the name. I think it's past my bedtime here, but this is a very famous, luxurious hotel. But you could tell all the lights are off and it's vacant and it's closed because I think the owner of the hotel is in a battle with somebody. I kind of forget the story. Probably some of you guys know in the chat. How can I forget the name of the hotel? It's like the most luxurious, famous hotel in the city.
It's like...
Could somebody help me out with that? I know somebody in the chat. I don't know why I'm having a brain fart on that. It's not the... No, it's not the Sherry Netherland. It'll come to me in a minute. No, not the Plaza. No, not the Essex House. All right, I got to think about that for a moment because that's going to kill me all night. There's also one in Lower Manhattan. It's the Four Seasons. There we go. Thank you so much. The Four Seasons Hotel. That's closed. So the Four Seasons Hotel closed during the pandemic and it never reopened. So if anybody wants to know a really interesting story, I kind of forget it. I read the article, somebody sent it to me, but just Google Four Seasons Hotel, New York City, Billionaires Row, and it's totally closed. And I believe the owner is either in a battle with the city because they don't want to pay the property taxes because the city forced them to shut down, obviously due to the pandemic. I don't know the whole story, but it's a very interesting story. I'll read up on it maybe tonight. But yeah, it's closed, totally vacant, which is a shame because I think the city's recovering in a big way, and I think we need everybody to participate in that. All right, everybody, we are outside of the Bloomingdale's right now. We are on Lexington Avenue. Now, if you look all the way down Lexington Avenue, you'll actually be able to see the Chrysler building. You can see the spire right there. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We usually start these streams at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, or New York time, walking around the city and talking about the financial markets and the real estate market. We'd love you guys to be a part of that. Hey, Cooking Bros says, have you ever shopped at Bloomingdale's? I was there once. I've been there a couple times. I just think everything is a little bit too expensive here, a little bit out of my price range. Now, I gotta be honest with you guys. If I need to get suits, right? If I need to wear, nice suits, I usually have about seven really, really nice suits and interchange them. In the Macy's flagship at 34th Street, you could actually get some really, really nice suits, take them to your tailor, right? They'll custom fit it for you, for like a fraction of the cost that you would get from Suit Supply. If you go to Suit Supply or something like that, you're gonna spend like $1,000, but you'll spend like a 60, maybe like 40% of that, at Macy's, at the flagship one at 34th Street. Hey, Design Ideas, what's up? Welcome to the Upper East Side. Good to see you. All right, let's cross here. You know what, since we're here, I'll take you guys to the tram that actually goes to Roosevelt Island. And very seldom do we walk down these side streets of the Upper East Side. Now, it is gorgeous, it is beautiful, as you could tell, but I don't think it compares to the Upper West Side. I'm gonna keep my voice down just in case I offend anybody up here. Wouldn't want to do that. But if you guys remember last night's live stream, remember when we were walking down the side streets near the Dakota, which is 72nd Street in Central Park West? I think the brownstones there are just so unique, so gorgeous, that I don't know. I mean, these are nice too. These buildings are nice. But it feels more homey, it feels more inviting, it feels like I could raise a family there. Here I think it feels a little bit too stiff. I think there's almost like too much wealth on the Upper East Side where it's like a little bit too stiff. I feel like the Upper East Side, excuse me, I feel like on the Upper West Side, it's more family friendly, family oriented, a little bit more laid back, nice brownstones. Hey, Melissa 2087, what's up? This is 57 degrees in Manhattan. It is, which I'm not too excited about because, guys, can you believe tomorrow is already June? Can you believe that? I honestly can't even believe that. It felt like yesterday was Christmas. I feel like we were walking around during Christmas time in like -6-degree weather doing a live stream, and now we are past Memorial Day and almost in June, which is wild. This is the very tippy top of 432 Park. Now, since this is the first business day of the month, which is tomorrow, does anybody know what major economic piece of data we're going to get out on the first business day of the month? I think you guys already know this. We've hammered this and drilled this for the past 2 years on the live stream. But just in case you forgot, on the first business day of every single month, the Institute for Supply Management releases the PMI numbers, which is, in my view, one of the most important leading, economic indicators that we must follow. Because essentially, you're looking at a visual of the business cycle in the United States. Now, economists estimate that we are going to get a 47 reading, which will be in line with the reading we got last month. Hold that thought. I want to give you guys a pretty good shot of the apartment buildings here. Hey, Jimmy Anderson, what's up, man? Jimmy Anderson is here. Says, walk some Wall Street, good to see you. And cheers, everybody. Jimmy, hopefully you had a good Memorial Day weekend, dude. Long time no see. I trust you're well. Now look at how gorgeous these homes are. I still think these townhomes are not as good as the ones on the Upper West Side with the original big brownstone, those weaving staircases. But they are beautiful nonetheless. These are 3-floor townhomes here on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Kenny says, where are we? This is the Upper East Side. But you can kind of see into the apartments, and they are absolutely beautiful. We are headed towards Sutton Place. Wow, you could actually see a grand piano in that apartment. That was really beautiful. You know, some of those grand pianos, guys, especially one of those big, like the massive, you know, Steinway ones, those could be like $25,000 and up, right, for a piano. Sometimes if you get like a custom built, really nice Steinway and Sons piano, all right, notice the gates. I love this particular townhome, and I'll tell you why. Well, I think both of them, because you have the really deep black outlines on the windows. You have the white and sort of light gray color on the outside that is offset rather nicely with the deep, rich red oak wood doors. I think it really 5%, we're rocking and rolling. But I appreciate these are really nice. Hey, Beverly Hill, thank you so much. I think this may almost be a full moon tonight. I always say this, you could tell when something is very expensive in Manhattan, when you have your own personal garage. That is unheard of, okay? So this is pristine real estate here. Very, very sought after, very coveted. If you have the opportunity to have your own personal garage in Manhattan, that's lights out. That is in a very expensive townhome right there. But I also really like this one. This is sort of like a cream color on the outside. Here's one available from Douglas Elliman. This whole townhome is for sale. Maybe we could look up how much this one is. I'll give you guys the details. I think it'll be fun to do that. Somebody says we're buffering. Here's another one. This one's for sale by Compass. Very nice. Hey, Deep Value Alex is loving the neighborhood. What's the median price point of those townhomes? I mean, those are definitely, I'd say all of them are probably 10 million and up. On the Upper East Side, totally. Probably even more sometimes. Now, did you guys, are we still buffering, by the way? I may need to turn off my Wi-Fi. Let me do that. For some reason my Wi-Fi is always locked on. But Billionaire Telecom, I should say telecom pioneer, Carlos Slim, actually listed his entire, I think it was a townhome on the Upper East Side. Did anybody see that listing? I think that is, 50 million and up, maybe more. Wabi says the Upper East Side is way overpriced. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful neighborhood, don't get me wrong. But in my view, I really like the Upper West Side a little bit better. But you have a lot of new development going up. We'll check out this new development. This is by CM and Associates. This building is actually really nice, and since we are, where are we now? This is 3rd Avenue? 2nd Avenue. You could probably have a nice view of the East River from this building too. Hey, Mike C, what's up? I am actually, Mike. So here's what I'm thinking of doing. I got to get a place in Manhattan. I got to get a place in the city. Ooh, that guy had a really nice Vespa, by the way. Or I should say scooter. I think I'm gonna rent first. And I'm looking at the Upper West Side. Because as we talked about last night, you know, rents are coming down. Rents are cooling in the city, particularly in the studio 1-bedroom apartment. You know, if you really look hard and you find the right deal, you can rent a studio on the Upper West Side for $2,000, right? It's going to be a small space, I get it, but, and I know many of you are thinking, a studio for $2,000? I know. But we live in Manhattan, that's what it is here. And that's actually a pretty steep discount, right? Because if you think about directly after the pandemic in 2021, depending on the building, you know, studios could, you know, if it's an ultra luxurious building, you could be looking at $4,500, guys, for a studio, okay? And that's a reality. So, you know, to be able to live in one of those brownstone buildings in a studio, right around 2,000, excuse me, maybe 1950. I think that's a fair price. I think that's a good deal. That's probably about where they should be trading. Maybe they'll even get down all the way to, you know, if we're lucky, maybe 1875. But, you know, we'll see. Things are cooling, right? Things are cooling, which is good. Yeah, Nina says fair price, actually go for it. It is. For Manhattan, it is. And for the Upper West Side, especially if you can get that below 86th Street, that's a deal. That's a deal. Yeah, that's true. Ryan Beck says just think about how often you'll actually be in it, right? You're just using it for sleeping. That's a good way to think about it.
Which is it? What is it?
I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people think they need more space than they actually do, right? And from living in Manhattan, I think I told you guys the crazy story. You know, when I was in college, right, I literally lived in a walk-in closet. Like not joking around, not being a little bit facetious, like lit. So I really think people believe they need more space than they actually do. I'm really under that impression. I really believe people think they need more space than they actually do. You're gonna be out. You're gonna be hanging out at work with coworkers, with friends. You know, you don't need 2,000 square feet of space. At least maybe that's just my opinion. Hey, Ken Brockton says that townhouse has a monthly tax of $6,215. That seems a little steep. Yeah, that seems a little steep. I believe it though, but that does seem a little steep. Deep value Alex is $4.5 million for the East 61st Street townhome. Wow. Wow. Okay, how many square feet is it? You know, I guess that does make sense because this is 2nd Avenue, right? You're further away from the park. It's not like you're on the park. This is, you know, 2nd Avenue, so it is kind of out of the way. Hey, Abdullah, what's up? Good to see you. Ryan Beck says studio sounds perfect for someone active, young and on the go. Yeah. I agree 100%. Wow, Dolly Girl Twins says I'll be living at 35 Hudson Yards in 2024. That is awesome. That is awesome. Congratulations to you. I'm assuming you closed on the property. That's a really, really awesome area, Hudson Yards. That's all new development too. So you're probably gonna have amazing amenities. And you're going to be close to my neck of the woods, right at Penn Station. So congrats to you. That's awesome. Very cool. Now I'm trying to think of exactly which building that is. So I'm trying to visualize the Hudson Yards. So you have, in proximity to the Equinox Tower, which one is your building? Probably a little bit further north, right? Or south by the High Line. That's another thing we got to do. Maybe I'll take you guys to the High Line tomorrow. All right, so this is 2nd Avenue. This is looking all the way downtown. You could tell it's garbage day in New York. Wow, Vivian's is 3,730 square feet. That's big. It's a big place. All right, let's look at some more townhomes together. These are more like, oh, look at these guys. These are really, really unique. I got to cross the street in order to show you, though. Always got to watch. So these are all individual townhomes. And look at the entrances. Look at how cool that is. So I'm assuming the divider is right here. These look pretty big too. These are probably all like 3,500 square foot. Love the doors on that. What do you guys think about the doors? Deep value, Alex, is how much would it cost to renovate a townhome with a garage? Well, it really depends. I'll tell you guys this, because I was actually working on a deal in the West Village, and a client wanted to purchase a townhome, a really, really beautiful townhome in the West Village that it needed a total gut renovation. Like, this thing was so old. But a lot of the buildings in the West Village, as you know, they are extremely old. You know, these are 100-plus-year-old buildings. So they're protected historically. So there's only so much you could do to the outside. A lot of times you have to leave the outside fully intact. So for people wanting to put in an elevator or something like that, it can almost be impossible if these buildings are protected under certain zoning and regulation for historical buildings, historical landmarks. You can't change the facade. And in this particular building, I think where the fire escape was located or something, or they needed to have access to that to build an elevator, but they couldn't do that because if they got access to that, they would have had to change the facade of the outside, so they couldn't do it. There's all interesting sort of weird quirks about it, particularly in Manhattan. Oh, look at this bar. This is a cool shot. Look at that. Oh, Martin says Hudson Yards would be terrible for me. I'm a photographer and it's too close to B&H. That's so true. You'd probably spend your entire month's rent on photography equipment. I think this is a really cool shot. You see everybody in the neighborhood hanging out, having a drink. That's what I love about New York. It's a Wednesday night, it's probably almost midnight, and everybody's out having a good time, just like it's Friday night. Love that. Local grants. I must abide by certain rules to maintain. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Hey, I see Joseph Hardaway here. What's up, Joseph?
Oh my God, so good. I went to a bar.
Oh, this is Vineyard Vines. I don't wear any of this stuff, but there's a lot of people out in the Hamptons that wear this. Hey, Alec S. Tom, Astoria, good place to live. I got a work colleague who invested in a multi-unit building there. Yeah, Astoria's a big place, right? But generally speaking, Astoria, Queens is very good. But again, it would just depend on where it is. But it's an up-and-coming neighborhood. It's a really nice neighborhood in Queens. I would live there. I would live in Astoria for sure, in a heartbeat. Look at this. Love this building with the fire escapes. I'll try to stand back further. What do you guys think about this building? This is East 67th Street and 3rd Avenue. Hold on, I'm getting a call. All right, cool. All right, let's head further back into the city, deeper into, or by Central Park. Teresa Diaz is 10:30, so we're right on time because my phone is running low anyway. But tomorrow, we will be doing a little bit of a deeper dive into Salesforce's earnings report. They reported today after the bell. Also, CrowdStrike. We are going to be doing a deep dive there, and Okta. Now, all three of those stocks are markedly lower after hours. Pretty bad reaction to earnings, but I think it'd be appropriate to do a little bit of a deeper dive, sort of line item by line item there. Oh, this is a nice FDNY firehouse here. Look at that. Tomorrow we'll also be covering the PMI numbers that are going to be released. The Institute for Supply Management is going to be releasing the PMI numbers, which is a very useful leading economic indicator. So we'll look at that. This is the 19th precinct. I think very seldom we showcase police precincts here in Manhattan, but this one's really nice. This is the 19th. Look at that, it says 1887. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the walk through the Upper East Side. I think we hit a lot of neighborhoods last week and this week. You sort of had this, you got to see the contrast between the brownstones of the Upper West Side. I think this is Hunter College. Let's see. Yeah, this is Hunter. So this is a CUNY in the City University of New York college system. Hunter College. Very good school. And look at that view all the way downtown. See the Chrysler Building. You have a pretty good view because we're up on a hill. You know what, since we're here at Hunter College, I haven't been here in so long. We'll take a quick lap around Hunter College and then we'll call it a day. But Hunter is, I would say, one of the better CUNYs out of the 4-year main four-year university system. CUNY has community colleges like BMCC, Hostos, which is actually in the Bronx. But in the four-year college system, you have Brooklyn College, you have Hunter, you have Baruch, which is the finance school, named after the famous Bernard Baruch. Then you have John Jay College of Criminal Justice, which is my alma mater, which is 59th Street, 10th Avenue. Then further uptown in Manhattan is City College. And then in the Bronx, you have Lehman. Now, if I had to pick which campus I like the best, it would definitely have to be probably a tie between Lehman College and the City College in New York. Now, if any of you are New Yorkers or who've gone to those schools, they're really, really beautiful campuses, particularly Lehman. A campus like Hunter, John Jay, they're pretty much just skyscrapers. It's not much of a campus at all, being in New York. Hey, 4K Walking, thank you so much for your very kind and generous donation. This is hello, greetings from a walker in Vietnam. Hey, very cool. Good to see our viewers in Vietnam. Love that. Maybe one day I'll get the pleasure to travel to Vietnam. I would very much enjoy that, and thank you for being here. And thank you for your donation. 4K Walk from Vietnam. All right, guys, I think we will end it here. I do have to be up very early in the morning tomorrow, but I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I thought it was really cool to see the Upper East Side. We never really get a chance to come here, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the architecture in the city and our conversation. We will be back live tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. So if you want to join us tomorrow, feel free to click the subscribe button, hit the like button on the video. We'll see you guys back here, 8:30. So Gary Carpenter, appreciate it. Ryan Beck, good to see you. Justin S., Patrick, New York, all of our moderators. And there's always a bull market somewhere. You just need to know where to look. Brian, Michael Joseph, Mike C., Hang with Mark Mom, Sanjeev, Bill Rollins, Hawaii, Nina, Abdullah, Muhammad. See you guys tomorrow.